Nice that you are watching this video. Today we are going to talk about the album Speak Now. Speak Now is the third studio album by the American singer-songwriter Taylor Swift. It was released on October 25, 2010, by Big Machine Records. Swift wrote the album entirely herself while touring in 2009-2010 to reflect on her transition from adolescence to adulthood. Swift framed Speak Now as a loose concept album about the unsaid things she wanted to deliver to the subjects of her songs, using confessional songwriting. The album is mostly about heartbreak and reflections on broken relationships, and some tracks were inspired by Swift's rising stardom in the public eye to confront her critics and adversaries. She and Nathan Chapman produced Speak Now, which combines country pop, pop rock, and power pop. Its songs incorporate prominent rock stylings, and their melodies are characterized by acoustic instruments intertwined with chiming electric guitars, dynamic drums, and orchestral strings. After the album's release, Swift embarked on the Speak Now World Tour from February 2011 to March 2012. The album was supported by 6 singles, including the US Billboard Hot 100 Top 10 singles, Mine, and Back to December, Sparks Fly, and the deluxe track, Hours. Speak Now peaked atop the charts and received multi-platinum certifications in Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. In the United States, it sold 1 million copies within its first release week, spent 6 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard 200, and was certified 6 times platinum by the Recording Industry Association of America. Music critics generally praised Speak Now for its radio-friendly melodies and emotional engagement. Some critics thought the lyrics represented Swift's maturity in early adulthood, but several others criticized the confrontational tracks as shallow. At the 54th Annual Grammy Awards in 2012, Speak Now was nominated for Best Country Album, and its third single, Mean, won Best Country Song and Best Country Solo Performance. The album appeared in 2010's decade-end lists by Billboard and Spin, and Rolling Stone ranked it in their 2012 list, 50 Best Female Albums of All Time. After a 2019 dispute regarding the ownership of Swift's back catalog, she re-recorded Speak Now and released it as Speak Now, Taylor's version, on July 7, 2023. Taylor Swift released her second studio album Fearless through Nashville-based Big Machine Records in November 2008. The album spent 11 weeks at number 1 on the US Billboard 200, the longest chart run for a female country music artist. It was the best-selling album of 2009 in the United States, and then 20-year-old Swift the youngest artist to have an annual bestseller since Nielsen SoundScan began tracking album sales in 1991. 2 of the album's singles, Love Story and You Belong With Me, performed well on both country and pop radio and brought Swift to mainstream prominence. Love Story was the first country song to reach number 1 on the mainstream Top 40 chart, and You Belong With Me was the first country song to top the all-genre radio songs chart. At the 52nd Annual Grammy Awards in February 2010, Fearless won Album of the Year and Best Country Album, and its single, White Horse, won Best Female Country Vocal Performance and Best Country Song. The success of Fearless made Swift one of country music's biggest stars to cross over into the mainstream market. At the 2009 MTV Video Music Awards, where Swift won Best Female Video for You Belong With Me, the rapper Kanye West interrupted her acceptance speech. The incident received widespread media coverage and became known as Kanyegate. At the 52nd Annual Grammy Awards, Swift sang You Belong With Me and Rhiannon with Stevie Nicks. Some critics commented Swift performed with weak vocals. MTV News commented the MTV Awards incident transformed Swift into a bona fide mainstream celebrity. And the New York Times said it was refreshing to see a talented singer-songwriter like Swift make the occasional flub. Swift began writing for her third studio album immediately after she released Fearless and continued during her Fearless tour in 2009 and 2010. Because of her extensive touring schedule, Swift wrote her third album alone. I'd get my best ideas at 3 a.m. in Arkansas, and I didn't have a co-writer around, so I would just finish it. That would happen again in New York and then again in Boston, and that would happen again in Nashville. Inspired by her growth into adulthood, she conceived Speak Now as a loose concept album about the things she wanted to tell certain people she had met but never had a chance to. As with her songwriting on previous albums, Swift strove to convey emotional honesty with details as specifically as possible, believing it is important for a songwriter to do so. She described her songs as diary entries about her emotions that helped her navigate adulthood. Swift chose not to follow the trend of making increasingly sexualized music by artists of her age, and believed such a path would be incongruent with her artistic vision. Departing from Fearless's theme of fairy tales and starry-eyed romance, Speak Now explores introspection and reflections on broken relationships, by avoiding sexual references in its songs. The album kept Swift's "good girl" image intact. Some tracks were inspired by Swift's public experience, including past relationships with high-profile celebrities, which received media attention during the album's promotional rollout. The confessional lyrics of Speak Now are more direct and confrontational than those on Swift's past albums. On Back to December, she asks an ex-lover to forgive her wrongdoings. Swift wrote the title track after hearing a friend's ex-boyfriend was marrying another woman. In the lyrics, the protagonist crashes the ex-boyfriend's wedding and tries to halt it. Dear John narrates a devastating relationship of a 19-year-old female narrator who accuses a much older man of manipulating her with dark, twisted games. Swift's encounter with an ex-lover at an awards show, where they ignored each other despite Swift feeling a need to speak to him, inspired the story of Us. On Better Than Revenge, Swift affirms vengeance against a romantic rival who is known for the things she does on the mattress. Romantic optimism is another theme of the album. The opening track, Mine, is about Swift's hope of attaining happiness despite her tendency to run from love, to avoid heartbreak. It was the first song she included on the track list because it represents her then new perspective of romance. Swift had written Sparks Fly, a song about dangerous hints of love at first sight, before she released her 2006 self-titled debut album. She re-recorded the song for Speak Now after she received fan requests to release it at the 2010 CMA Music Festival. Enchanted describes the aftermath of an encounter with a special person without knowing whether the infatuation would be reciprocated. Haunted is about romantic obsession, and Last Kiss explores the lingering feelings after a breakup. On Long Live, Swift expresses gratitude to her fans and bandmates. The lyrics of Enchanted and Long Live incorporate high school prom and fairy tale imagery that recalls the youthful optimism of Fearless. Besides love and romance, Swift wrote about self-perception. Never Grow Up is a contemplation of her childhood, adulthood, and future. The self-aware, mean, in which Swift sings about facing a man who had tried to take her down, was inspired by her detractors. Because of her confessional songwriting, the media became invested in Swift's personal life and believed each song is about a real person, an ex-lover, a friend. or an enemy. Although Swift was interested to hear the response from the people to whom she dedicated the songs, she did not publicly name them and believed they would realize this themselves. She did reveal that Kanye West, who interrupted Swift's acceptance speech at the 2009 MTV Video Music Awards, was the subject of Innocent. In the track, Swift sings about forgiving a man who wronged her. According to Esquire, the track can be interpreted as a simple lament of a lost love, or a former friend being forgiven. Swift wrote as many as 25 songs, and by early 2010, she had begun to select songs for the album. To ensure the album would be coherent, she played the songs to her family, friends, and the producer Nathan Chapman, who had produced for Swift since the recording of her self-titled debut album in 2006. Swift chose Enchanted as a working title, but Big Machine Records founder Scott Borchetta recommended Swift choose a different title, deeming Enchanted unfit for the album's mature perspective. She settled on the title Speak Now because she thought it best captures the album's essence. I think it's such a metaphor, that moment where it's almost too late, and you've got to either say what it is you are feeling or deal with the consequences forever. And this album seemed like the opportunity for me to speak now or forever hold my peace. Swift finalized the track list by June 2010. Swift recorded much of Speak Now with Chapman at his Pain in the Art Studio in Nashville. Although Fearless's commercial success allowed Swift to engage a larger group of producers, she worked solely with Chapman because she believed they had a productive relationship. The recording process started with a demo. Swift recorded vocals and played guitar, and Chapman sang background vocals and played other instruments. After arranging the demos, Swift and Chapman approached other engineers and musicians to tweak some elements, including overdubs and programmed drums. The first track Chapman produced with Swift on Speak Now is Mine, which they recorded within 5 hours. Because of his artistic autonomy, Chapman said he was responsible for 60% of the music on the album, including 90% of the guitars. Much of his production for Speak Now is identical to that for Fearless. He programmed the drums with Toontrack's software Superior Drummer, played drums on the Roland Phantom G6 keyboard, added electric guitars to the arrangements, recorded Swift's vocals with an Avantone CV12 microphone and his background vocals with a Shure SM57, produced the bass with an Avalon VT737 preamplifier, and used Endless Audio's clasp system to synchronize his editing on Pro Tools and Logic. Because of Swift's country music vision, Chapman asked other musicians, mostly in Nashville, to replace his programmed drums with live drumming and add acoustic instruments such as fiddle. For instance, Chapman asked Steve Marcantonio to cut down programmed drums on Mine at Blackbird Studio in Nashville. For some tracks, including Back to December, Swift and her team went to Capitol Studios in Los Angeles to record string orchestration. After recording finished, Justin Niebank mixed the album on Pro Tools at Blackbird Studios. He had mixed some tracks on Fearless. Within 3 weeks, Niebank finished mixing 17 tracks, including 14 on the Standard Edition and 3 bonus tracks on the Deluxe Edition. Because Swift wanted Speak Now to be a direct communication with her audience, Niebank infused monaural reverberation inspired by 1950s and 1960s music in the mix to evoke a vintage and retro vibe that, according to Niebank, brought a sense of authenticity. Hank Williams mastered the recordings, because much of Speak Now was recorded and mixed in Nashville. Niebank believed the album stood out among popular records that were manipulated with contemporaneous technologies Auto-Tune and Melodyne. although Chapman was responsible for much of the production. He said Swift's co-production credit is not a vanity credit. We were really a team, very collaborative. Speak Now follows the country pop production of Fearless and incorporates prominent elements of mainstream pop music, more so than Fearless. Critics debated the album's genre. Pace described the album as a blend of country and radio-friendly pop tunes with climatic build-ups and catchy hooks. Entertainment Weekly classified the album as pop and commented the only country elements are its smattering of banjo pluck and dainty twang. According to BBC Music, Speak Now veers towards pop rock. Ann Powers, in a review for the Los Angeles Times, found the album borderline alternative rock and bubblegum pop, with its songs experimenting with styles from lush strings of Celine-style kitsch pop to Americana banjo to countrypolitan electric guitar. Now described Speak Now as slickly produced power pop. Critics noted the banjo-led bluegrass track, Mean, as the album's pure country song. Much of the album consists of up-tempo country pop melodies, exemplified by the opening track, Mine. Many tracks explore rock stylings that draw from rock music of the late 1970s through the 1980s, and their melodies incorporate chiming guitars, loud drums, and powerful choruses. Sparks Fly has an arena rock production with guitars and subtle fiddles. The title track is an acoustic guitar-driven country pop song with a 1950s rock chorus. The Story of Us and Better Than Revenge are electric guitar-driven pop-punk songs. The former contains influences of dance pop and new wave. The arena rock and goth rock-inspired Haunted incorporates a dramatic recurring string section. The closing track, Long Live, is a heartland rock song featuring girl group harmonies and chiming rock guitars. The remaining tracks of Speak Now are ballads. Back to December is a gentle, orchestral, string-laden ballad. Speak Now's longest track, Dear John, at 6 minutes and 43 seconds, is a slow-burning, bluesy, country pop song with electric guitar licks. The guitar ballad, Never Grow Up, incorporates an understated production that accompanies its wistful lyrics. On Enchanted, the acoustic guitar crescendos after each refrain and leads up to a harmony-layered coda at the end. The tracks, Innocent and Last Kiss, incorporate sparse instruments. The latter is a slow-tempo waltz with breathy vocals. If This Was a Movie, a bonus song on the deluxe edition, and the only song not written solely by Swift, is a fast-paced ballad with a recurring guitar riff and simple harmonies. Next video we will continue about the album Speak Now. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.